Um, yeah, to be a guest that were in different.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, actually,
Um,
the same room. It was just,
no, I moved back to Kingston, and you're in Toronto, so now we're doing this
yeah,
online. So,
we're having long distance. um, I'm thinking light wine because I felt it was a very clear and close.
is that just because soccer moms give you white wine vibes?
Possibly. It was also the only alcohol I
Uh, I'm just drinking regular water because I'll say it's in honor of the fact that there are minors in Modern Family, and I respect that they can't drink either. Also, I have a really dry throat, and I don't think alcohol is the solution. Okay, so Modern Family. We took a break from sitcoms for the past couple episodes, but we're back.
Yeah, everyone's favorite family, nuclear family and non-nuclear families. I don't know what, and I don't know if there's any other terms for any other kinds of families.
I don't really know either, and I've taken classes about types of families, so
I don't know.
I think
There's
there
the
are
old
different.
man, hot woman family, and there's the gay family. All very modern takes.
They're all super. I feel like the main characters for the first season are like Claire's family, but they're probably the least like modern family. Like Claire and Phil's, like,
Yeah,
and they're like the least modern family.
I guess they're like, yeah. Um, I was asking a couple people about this, and I feel like everyone's had the same answers of like they started watching the show with their family, like sitting down with their parents and their siblings. Like that's how I started watching the show, like the first few episodes at least. And my parents were super into it. It was funny.
Yeah, I think I watched the first like at least four, if not six seasons with my parents. Like
Okay.
we owned them on like iTunes, and like we would like wait for the weekly episodes to come out on that and like watch it all together.
Oh my
Because it was
gosh.
like one of the few shows that like my mom and dad both liked, and that's hard to
Okay.
come by.
Yeah, I that was for our family too. Like we rarely kind of agreed on shows. Usually, like my mom had to kind of like grin and bear it through whatever we wanted to watch. But like this was a good one.
Yeah,
And I
oh, it
think,
was similar in my house. Yeah, my mom basically just had to watch what everyone else picked because if we watched something my dad didn't like, he would just like storm off.
these high standards of television. But anyways, I thought that was interesting because I know you wanted to talk about how like it's the show's lasted for like what, a decade, like 12 seasons, something crazy like
It
that,
was 11 seasons, yeah.
and like pretty continuously like kept its pace and kept its excitement and kept its quality, and they've been able to like grow and evolve with like the audience and with like a decade long um lifetime to accommodate for. I think they did a really good job at that, and I think it's interesting too that like our parents really liked it, and then I feel like I liked it when it first came out, but I only ever really got into it and like went back and like rewatched it and like thoroughly enjoyed it in like my young adulthood, like 20s.
Yeah, that's
So I
fair.
thought it
I
was
think um I liked it a lot when it first came out, but I never finished it like until like I went back and rewatched it maybe last year. Yeah, so like my early 20s. And I was even rewatching it this year and like I got so emotional. And I only
yeah.
rewatched the first like 5 or 6 seasons, but like I got so emotional at so many scenes because it is like it's genuinely a little bit heartbreaking just like how much like just like watching like the families like grow up and grow apart a little bit because like obviously
Hmm.
like when Hailey goes off to college, I want to see her succeed, and I'm like so sad that she's leaving, but I'm like, oh, it's for the best, and like stuff like little stuff like that where you just get like really upset and you like kind of like really relate a lot to like what's going on more than I expected to, considering I don't have any children. I've never been through it, but I'm like, oh, from this side, yeah, I can see it's like really scary, and it's
Yeah.
like I don't know.
Yeah, I think like I don't know if I to me it was more like getting emotional at like the like just overwhelmingly like wholesome parts of it that were just I was like, oh so cute and I'm like tearing up. Like there's so many cute family moments, probably in part to like I feel like they're a very like grounded and like realistic show. Like the family dynamics feel very like relatable and I don't know, honest. I guess it's like appropriately titled. Like it feels like an accurate depiction of like the family sitcom of like our generation kind of thing. That's what it
Yeah,
was to grow up.
I definitely think like even if like the characters themselves weren't always like even if the characters themselves weren't always relatable, like the situations that like they were in and like how they were reacting in the moment and stuff like that was definitely um like like relatable, and like the dynamics and stuff I could definitely like relate to and see like aspects of my own family in it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they did a good job of like hitting like the archetypes on the head, but then also like fleshing them out so they felt like real people. So it's like, oh, the goofy dad and like the like yeah, soccer mom essentially that like just has so much more to them. Um and onwards. But yeah, I wonder like it's kind of weird too because I feel like it had to adapt to like consistently growing audiences and like my parents never watched it like going into like the later seasons. I feel like that's something like only like people our age really followed. I don't know. I can't speak for them, but you know, it was interesting that it kind of like shifted from like really like hitting its target audience with like Gen X, like appealing to like parents that haven't like really been represented in like a family setting in that way. Like you think about you know compared to like say like Everybody Loves Raymond or something like that. It's like so it was so different and like new and like honest. So I think that's like why like kind of like my parents really liked it, but then they kind of dropped off, and then I really liked it going for like following the kids grow up. So I think it just kind of like changed viewership or like changed audiences.
Yeah, I think like my parents also like didn't really watch it past like the first few seasons. I think they would watch it like if I put it on, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't love it as much. I do think the show had to pivot like in the later like probably when like Alex went to college, because I feel like they couldn't like do the same thing with Hailey where they like say, oh, JK, she got kicked out, like she hangs out, so like they actually have to like send a kid away and stuff. Like they had to pivot more towards um like a different aspect of the family, and it's like you're still a family, but like your kids are growing up and like going away a little bit, not like leaving, but like they're going away. And then I think I also enjoyed watching like the adults a little bit more living their lives, not just like as parents or like raising their kids, but like seeing them as like actual people who are like obviously they're real people, but like are like yeah, obviously parents are more than just parents, but like when you like watch it initially, it's like oh, their lives are kind of about their kids and about their family, and it kind of seems like when the kids grow up a lot and they can stress less about that, it's really like fun to watch the hijinks and the dynamics that they get into too.
Yeah, when like the kids kind of like stop being plot devices, the the setting isn't like just like a PTA meeting and like a bully and like a first crush and like things like that they're dealing with their kids, and it shifts to like Cam and Mitch like having dinner party with their friends. It's a little awkward because like I don't know, they didn't bring a gift or something. Like that stuff was really fun too. It was very like the lives of these people.
Yeah, and I think like not many like family TV shows can really pivot once their kids grow up into like a different type of show. But like Modern Family did it, and like I'm sure it got criticism, but I think it did it like pretty well. Like pivoting into like a new way of
Yeah,
telling this family stories. Or yeah,
yeah, and I forget sometimes too. Like thinking back on it, like I always forget that it's actually like a mockumentary style. Like I always like it's so weird to me that it is, and it works for the show kind of, but like it's not addressed. Like it's so blended in to just the sitcom. It's so like buried. Like they never address. It's not the end of The Office where they ever like address like, oh, there's cameramen here.
No, they never address. I feel
Like
like
what is that? Just like
yeah, they don't
like
address it,
Fleabag.
and they kind of I think do it less than they did in the first. Like in the first season, I went back and watched it and noticed it was like a lot more prevalent than like when you watch it like later, like uh the like cutaways, like them talking to like the camera and stuff like that. Or at least
Yeah.
you notice it a lot more in the first
Yeah.
season.
Okay. Okay. Like they like during like scenes and stuff with each other, they'll like address the camera kind of thing.
Like it's just like I feel like you know, like maybe it's just like a better like editors and directing and stuff, but like
Okay.
it's just like you would really notice like the cutaways to like the interviews and stuff, or like you would really like it would feel like it was an interview more than just them sort of commenting. And I feel like later it's more like them commenting on what happened, and
Yeah.
it's less interviewee.
It feels more like like a fourth wall break kind of. So it's kind of like magic, I guess. That way, it's like they're not really there, like in the canon of the show. There's not really like a documentary going on,
Yeah, it's not. I
which
think
is interesting.
it would be fun if everyone did that in real life. They just acted like they were in a documentary.
Kind of okay.
They're like, ah, she's being such a bee today, and it's like,
I can hear you.
who are you talking to? Um, but yeah, no. So I do think like in that sense, the show also grew, which was really nice. And
Yeah,
I liked some of the later storylines of like um Cam, Gloria, and Phil, and like sort of them talking about being like in-laws in the family, and like how it's like really different from like being around like the Pritchett's and stuff like that. I think those storylines are always really funny. Um,
yeah. I think like this show does a lot of like the tropes that I really like in it. Like I think they did them really like because I feel like they do that a lot more in the latest seasons, like you said, where like they kind of separate like the I don't know how you would call it, like the A type characters from like the more like blasé. I don't know how to say it in like a negative way because it's not negative, but like yeah, the more like the dumber characters.
and I
And the
do
more
like
like
that like all the A type characters are basically the Pritchett's. Like you see why
yeah,
they're A type. It's like very much like their DNA. Like Claire and Mitch are both incredibly high strung, somewhat toxic at times people. And like you can see they really like get it from like Jay, who has a similar mentality. But he softens a lot as the show goes on, I think.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was like a theme that I was going to talk about. I guess I don't know. Do you want to go into like tropes? I guess I feel like we're already kind of there.
Yeah, I feel like we're at
Um,
tropes now.
okay, yeah, I was going to talk about how like I feel like they do a lot of that like generational impact as like a theme. Like they address that a lot, like how not like necessarily the characters themselves, but they do it in like a more subtle way. Sometimes characters themselves, especially with like Claire and Mitch dealing with like their mother and their father's like divorce. But I find they like do a lot of like parallels between like the generations. Like Claire acting a lot like her like dad, and then like kind of still in like her adulthood being resentful towards her like stepmom, even though they're
Yeah.
separated
Well,
like
Claire
whatever
still calls her
small
dad
scale.
daddy, which I always think is really weird.
Yeah, like there's clearly something there, and like Mitchell too. Like they both have like her and Mitchell kind of just have like the same problems. Like they're both very like controlling and like petty and insecure, which I kind of like that they have like really similar like defense mechanisms and like responses to things because it really like it just adds like depth to their like sibling relationship. Like you really believe it.
Um, I was gonna say, I think, yeah, Claire and Mitchell both have a lot of, like, they always say Claire has daddy issues and Mitch has mommy issues, but I think they both just have parental issues in general. And I
Yeah,
think they've reacted to them in a really similar way. What I do like about it is that, like, they have some really heartwarming scenes where you realize, like, they did have each other and they were really close. And, like, I think their parents'
yeah.
issues brought them closer together in a lot of ways sometimes.
Yeah, and I think like a big way that they shifted, even like in terms of like the show, is like I feel like the like that first half of the season that like I don't know, can we like agree that there's kind of like a pivot, that there's kind of like the first half when like the kids are kids, and then just the second half when like the kids are like older. And then like the I feel like in the first half was a lot more about like Mitchell and Jay, because Jay like at the start was like a very like he was supposed to be like the like conservative older like kind of homophobic dad that like didn't really get his face on, and like that was like a big challenge of the relationship, and they kind of overcame that. And then like later on they kind of like the three of them together kind of like unpack the like trauma of their mother like and their father's divorce and like their mother as a person, which I don't think either of them get along with. Like I don't think they
Yeah,
so
I
they
would
kind of
say,
realized that he was a good
yeah, I think the first half is definitely more about Mitch and Jay, like basically repairing their relationship. I would say they do a really good job at sort of like subtly showing like like the shit that their like parents put them through. Just in
yeah.
like random scenes, like if they're like going through like old clothing or something, they'll like talk about it, and it's like, oh, it's really clear that like this has been an issue in your life, but like they don't necessarily always make it a big thing, which I thought was really nice. And I do
Yeah.
think once Mitch is able to like, once Mitch and Jay's relationship is like a little bit more repaired, he and Claire uh spend a lot more time talking about like their childhood, and I think getting closer as adults.
Yeah, because I find Mitch is a very like yeah, as we talk about Mitch a little bit, but he's very like has a lot of barriers as it seems, like very early on, and then like that slowly comes down. You can see through like his relationship with Cam as well. Anyways, it's really interesting that they do it. It's like so naturally, which I think like adds to the realism of it and like the relatability, and makes those like when it hits, it like really hits.
Well, speaking of like his barriers, I found out that I didn't know this, but like I was watching an interview and I found out that Mitch and Cam didn't like kiss on screen ever until like season two. And like
Oh,
I think the way they kind of like they don't like say it outright, but the way they address it is kind of like really good for Mitch's character, where Cam just basically says like you have issues being PDA with me because of your dad, and then they like address it, and then Gloria makes like Jay kiss Mitch, and then like Mitch kisses like Cam, and like it's like very much like we have to
yeah.
address this issue that like you're never physical with me, and like it kind of also addresses the fact that literally they never kissed in the first season at all.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting. I like that just made me think of like adding Gloria into that too. Like I feel like she is also like a very important character in like the Pritchett, like the three of them's like the way she helps like them mend their relationship, and like I feel like with each of them she kind of has moments before they all come together where she's like bringing like an outside perspective and like teaching them to like find balance and like open themselves up a bit, and you can kind of see that in the way that she's raised her like Manny, and how opposite that is from like Mitchell and Claire were raised. Like Manny's a free spirit and kind of allowed to do what he wants, and she trusts him and to be emotional and be vulnerable, and then she kind of teaches that, I find, to like Claire and Mitch, which I find is really sweet too, how much like Gloria does become like the stepmom that they didn't want but they needed at the end of it.
Yeah, I like the character of Gloria in general. Like they kind of put they kind of take the like second like the young hot trophy wife like second wife trope and flip it on its head a lot, where it's like, yeah, you might assume that she's like just there for the money, but like she actually really does love Jay, and you kind of like show the like the I think the realities of being someone's second wife, because she has to deal with a lot of like assumptions and um a lot of
Yeah,
baggage from like kids about like the first like their mom and like his first marriage and like stuff like that. She has to deal with a lot of that shit. But I think Gloria's kind of like the best in a lot of ways, because she is the more like open emotional
yeah,
person, and like she brings that to the family, and that's kind of like what they need. And like you see like her as a real person and not just like a two-dimensional caricature, which is like what TV shows and movies often do with like the hot younger
yeah,
wife, or like the second wife is like she's like a gold digger or like she's
like ditzy.
like not a nice person, and Gloria's just like the opposite. Like she's so open and she's so sweet and she like genuinely wants to be their friends, and she's also really honest, which I like. Like she's not taking any of their shit. I think all the Pritchett's need her because she forces them to like talk about shit. Like she forced like the whole issue with like Mitch and Jay like not being affectionate with each other.
Yeah, she's like their therapist almost. Like she's just so unafraid. Like they get like Aries energy, not like afraid to like call them out on like their shit. I think she's definitely like probably like the strongest, especially like being an immigrant as well. Like I like that does get called out at certain points. Like when she eventually always does snap, which I feel like happens often, especially in the early seasons. She explains like, well, like you don't even understand like how smart I am in my own language, and you don't understand like all of these other parents like looking at me and making assumptions about me, like when she goes to like the school and stuff, especially from like Claire too. I feel like that's a big part of their relationship arc.
Yeah, well, I think at one point Gloria says to Claire, like Claire is mad that Gloria and Mitch have become friends, and like Gloria says to Claire, like I would love to be your friend, but you don't want to be my friend. You don't want to get to know me yet. Like I've tried. Like she is very honest about that, but she like doesn't stop like wanting to like do this, and she never closes herself off, which I really like about her. And then I think she brings it up like it's addressed a lot. She's like, do you know how hard it is to translate everything in my head? And I'm just like, yeah, that would suck. Like I'm not sure I could do that.
I find she it's like she really has to kind of fight her way for it, but it's fun to watch and it's very cathartic to watch. How and a lot of these outside like the outside parties to like the Pritchett family kind of coming in to build the new family. I feel like do a lot of that unpacking for like the Pritchett kids. I think like Claire's two biggest character arcs in the series is like the one with Gloria, where she like comes to accept her as like a friend and like family, and her like father's wife, and then also with like Phil when she kind of has this character arc of like understanding his like silliness and kind of getting on board with it, and like I feel like throughout the show learns to take life not as seriously.
Yeah, I think another big arc for her is when she like goes in and like starts working again.
Oh yeah.
Because I think like Claire, okay, I think Claire and Phil's dynamic is fun because in a lot of ways, I think Claire is the dad and Phil is like the mom. Like, yeah, Claire is the one who stays home and the one who's like, do your homework, do this, do that. And I think like dads can get a reputation for like coming home, being fun for a bit, and like going to work. But like Claire seems to offer the house like more structure, and she seems to be the one who's like responsible for like, even though like Phil is the one making the money, I feel like Claire is probably the one who's like in charge of their finances and responsible for a lot of that stuff. And then Phil comes in and gives like the emotional support that his kids need, which I think is like traditionally more of a mom role.
That's true, yeah.
So like she kind of takes that like soccer mom trope or that soccer mom character and like flips that too, which I think is fun. And so I think she really comes into her own when she finally like decides she wants to go back to work. And
but where I think she's like, I guess is a part of that too is like loosening her reins a little bit on her kids. Like they're getting older. I think she maybe was a little bit of an overprotective parent at times when they were younger, and then she like loosens that. And then I feel like there's that. We don't have to change the subject yet, but I was gonna talk about like Hailey, and how like they also utilize that like reflecting her parents with like her, especially they do that a lot with like her relationships, is they make it pretty obvious that like Hailey and what I think they do it with Andy and then also with Dylan, how they like mimic her parents' relationship a lot, like especially like her and Dylan kind of like they met at the same age that her parents met at, and Phil draws a lot of parallels between him and Dylan, and then with Andy the show makes it pretty clear that like Hailey is Claire and like Andy is Phil.
Yeah, I think throughout the show they really try to push the idea that Hailey is just like Claire.
Yeah.
But okay,
I don't
honestly,
think she is like Claire.
I don't think she is either. Well, I think the difference is that Claire grew up with her parents and Hailey grew up with Claire and Phil, not like
Yeah.
Jay
Jay and
and
whatever the mom's name is. Yeah. No, yeah, they always try. I was gonna talk about that too. I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I'm gonna say it now, but I think that they always try to make in the relationships. They always say, "Oh, Hailey is Claire." No, Hailey's Phil. Like,
yeah, Hailey is
she's.
Phil.
I don't understand. Like her and Luke are Phil, and Alex is
Alex is Claire.
Claire. And
I think
I don't know.
I think Hailey is more of a mix of the two of them, and I think what Claire is scared of with Hailey is that Hailey is definitely like as wild as Claire was, but with the judgment of Phil. So like, and to be fair, I would be terrified
She's
if
wild
that's
and irresponsible.
like if that was my kid too, because I think Phil doesn't have always great judgment. He's really sweet, but he doesn't have great judgment. And Claire like was a very wild person. I think Hailey sort of falls into the same.
Because yeah, she talks a lot about like how they would like fucking like run away from home together and stuff and like shoot smoke pot in the car. Like yeah, okay, she was like a wild. It's just
like,
kind of, like
Phil tamed her, I think, a little bit because like he's not as wild. Well, I don't know if he
which is
tamed her, but
interesting. I love when shows do that though. Like I find a lot of shows nowadays don't do that. Like I find a lot of shows will like whenever they do the flashback scenes or like they talk about like when they were kids. Something like Star Wars. But like it's really annoying when they make the like younger character, like the child version of the character, just like identical with like the same personality and like the same mannerisms and the same like ways of doing things. And it's like, no, that's not how like growth works. Like it's so much more interesting to see them like kind of opposite or see them like just contrast each other then you can like plug in the character arc for yourself. I don't know, it adds so much more to the characters.
yeah, and like you can see like that like Claire isn't like fully like a good girl or she's not a good girl or anything, but like you can see like obviously like you can understand why she was like or like how she might have been like a super like wild or adventurous person because like she and Phil do get into like lots of like hijinks that are like fun and she clearly does get a thrill out of like sort of doing things that she's not supposed to be doing and stuff like that for sure. So like I think that's they did it really well too where like her younger self is very different from herself now, but you can kind of see flashes of her younger self still in who she is today.
Yeah. And I find it comes up more. Maybe it's like a really interesting commentary on like how like she I feel like was maybe trying to be like the perfect mom from the start and like that was like a lot of pressure and she was like kind of putting pressure on herself and then stressing out about it and then as she like learned to kind of let go of it, she was able to be more herself.
Yeah, I think she definitely has to like yeah, I think she has to basically set aside time to like let go of the pressure of being like a perfect mom. And I think to be fair to her, moms in general are under like so much pressure all the time. Like especially like the judgment from like other moms to be like better and to be perfect. Like no offense to dads, but dads have it like so much easier. Like the societal pressure to be a dad is like it's so much less. Like you show up every so often as a dad and they're like, oh my god, you're an amazing father. Like and with a mom it's like you have to do so much more.
Yeah, I feel like as well that's like getting it's still like even more so today, but like that was like kind of when the show came out, like the 2010s. Very like girl boss era where it's like they look perfect at everything. Like always succeed and I feel like that added a lot of pressure. Like you can kind of see it now. I don't know if you've been on like sometimes I'm like parent TikTok and it's just like the aesthetic like you know like clean girl videos but it's for like parents and it's just like the over like organizing like the fridge and it's like and like everything's matching, everything's beige, everything's cord and it's like I feel that's so much pressure, dude. Like it's already hard enough to be a parent. How are you doing all this? So I feel like there is that like societal like
yeah, dude, I literally wrote a paper last year about how social media is so harmful to new parents because they go on and like they think that they have to be this way and they have to do all these things like right from pregnancy. Like if you look at like people's like pregnancy Instagrams and stuff, they're like, I have to be doing this, I have to be acting this way. And then there's just like all this pressure to like do and be that way. When in reality, like nobody is like that all the time. Like nobody's got that like hyper organized, color coded shit going on 24/7. They have that for the cameras, and then life probably gets messy.
Yeah. No, it's kind of crazy, but I do like the way, I don't know if the show like consciously did it like, I don't know, but I like the way she grows from that like archetype.
I think the
like
show
was one of the most set.
I like the show did something way later in the series, like when Gloria decided she wanted to be a real estate agent and like work with Phil. I don't know if you watched that far. But they did something really like what I liked that was really fun, which was they kind of shed a light on like how much like unseen like work Gloria does by like showing Jay, who's like now sort of in the role of like being the one who's home because he's retired and he's not doing as much.
Right.
And he's like, oh, I have to be sort of the like, I think they call it like the supportive wife character a little bit, where he's like, you know, like I could, when you come home from a long day of work, like you're just starting out, you're like basically an intern, you're tired, like I could make you dinner and I could like clean the house, but like you're not coming home and just having all these issues, and like I could listen to you when you talk about your job and stuff like that. The way that you've been like I could take care of you the way you've been taking care of me for so long. And I think that's like I really enjoyed that they like did that like flip, but like they consciously like talked about the fact that like she has done a lot for him, and like he wants to also do that back for her.
Yeah, it adds like balance to a dynamic that I think otherwise would feel flat. It like, which I think the show kind of does a lot, is like subvert types and stereotypes. Um, yeah.
Those were all the tropes I had to go through. Did you have any more you wanted to talk about?
I had a couple I just wanted to mention that I really liked.
Oh yeah, go for
it. My favorite tropes. I really like the tropes where one of the in-laws doesn't get along with one of the spouses, like with the spouse. So usually, especially when it's like the husband and the father-in-law, and I love that trope. It's so good. I feel like it was done so well here. Like it was so just. It's such like a nice character arc. It's always so cathartic when you see it resolved. And I feel like it's a lot of fun. Like you have so much fun with it, especially with Phil and Jay. Oh my god.
Yeah, I was gonna say I like how long it goes on for Phil and Jay. Like I feel like Jay and Cam's connect over football, and then they kind of like they have their in, and they like don't have as much of a tenuous relationship. With Phil and Jay, it's really like sweet and cute because like it sort of is shown throughout the show how much Jay really does respect Phil and like kind of like want his approval.
I feel like he has to like learn it. He has to like learn that Phil is like.
Yeah, but like I think like it's like Jay like softens up a lot with Phil.
Yeah.
But like he's still like got that like tough front, and I think like Phil, their dynamic just makes it so much more fun too, because Phil's so open about how much.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like he wants Jay's approval. One of the best parts of the
show for me.
Well, like
so funny.
I remember the episode where Jay makes his cocktails. He's like mint J lips. Do you get it? And Phil's trying to be a cool girl. And then Gloria's like, Phil, he thinks you're so funny. He made this joke up and said, guess what? Phil's going to love this. And it's just like, it was such a sweet little, like, nothing scene.
That was so good.
And so I think they do that trope really well. And, like, they show sort of the growth in it. Because they also show it with, like, Phil and Dylan a little bit, where, like, when Hailey gets pregnant, like, Phil does have a sort of negative feelings towards Dylan that, like, he didn't realize he would have.
Oh, yeah, doesn't he go to Jay and he's like, "How can you feel with these emotions?" Does he? Or did I make that up? I really just wanted to see that. But yeah, no, I don't know. That's always a fun dynamic for me. And then, oh yeah, I mentioned before. And then like the stepmom brought attention, which is kind of like a similar trope. But yeah, and then I was wondering if you wanted to talk about the girls. I kind of want to talk about like Hailey and Alex.
Is that not where we're at?
I have a hot take about.
You
Well,
have a hot
okay. Well,
take?
I don't know if it's a hot take or not. I was just gonna ask, what, like, who do you think is the better person between the
Hailey or
two?
Alex?
Yeah.
Um, I think it's really hard to say for
Okay.
sure.
No, wrong answer.
I think Hailey's probably a better person than Alex.
Me too. I'm
I
not an
actually,
Alex stan.
I actually have a little rant about Hailey.
Okay, fine. You do your rant about Haley. I'll do my rant about Alex.
Okay, it's not a negative rant. It's like an I love Hailey
Oh,
kind of rant. So like, it's not like I don't like her, but I just think Hailey, like the show failed her a little bit because I think like she started out as like a really like basic archetype of a character, like party girl who's like kind of ditzy, like and like she cares about like her social life and popularity and friends and stuff, which is totally fine. Like she can do that, and she has the boyfriend who like her parents don't like approve of, except for Phil kind of falls in love with Dylan a little bit, and like they show that relationship. Then they also like throughout the series, like they make Hailey grow up enough to make you think she's gonna finally like kind of move on to the next phase of her life, and then it seems like
yeah.
they don't know what to do, and they just bring her back, and it frustrates the
Yeah.
hell out of me because like I want to see her succeed so badly. And maybe it is realistic that like someone would keep like falling down and having missteps, but it's so frustrating because it just feels like the show does it in order to like do something with Hailey. And like when she goes to
Yeah.
college and finally gets in, I'm just so surprised that she like immediately fucks it all up and gets kicked out because I'm like, oh, but you finally like worked so hard and you opened up and were really vulnerable about how scared you are about not going to college. So how is it that you like so quickly did this into your like college career and stuff like that? And then like when she goes through all the shit with Andy, I'm like, okay, again, like she's learned to like grow up and like fight for what she wants. And then they kind of just afterwards revert her back to like the girl who you know because she
Yeah.
has a bunch of inappropriate boyfriends.
Yeah. I find she does become like a bit of like a one trick pony. Like they don't know what to do with it. Like I would have rather they just read her off to college and she comes back on like holidays. Then what? Like it's really disappointing. And I kind of just wish like I think it's fine because it's like fun for the premise of the show too that she becomes like a very young mom because I feel like that's like the point of the show is like all these families are like not conventional. But I think like I would have preferred if they had done it when she was younger
Oh, the
because
mom
I feel
thing?
like it would have been more interesting instead of just like a bookend to the series.
Yeah, I think I
It would
was
have given her something to
I
do.
was also okay with Hailey becoming a young mom and like growing
Yeah,
up through that. And I like didn't have a problem with Hailey ending up with Dylan because like he was a really like fun character who I think like they showed that she had a genuine connection with. But yeah, I did feel like when she went off to college, I was like, just write her off, not because I don't love her, because I think she might be my favorite character, but because like
yeah,
I desperately want to see a character who like I think like, anyone can relate to in a lot of ways. Like she struggles a lot with like her
yeah.
academics and stuff like that, and she struggles a lot with even like I think she just struggles with like life in general. Like you see her sort of like figuring it out, and like I kind of really wanted to see her like succeed because it felt like she earned it when she got into college, and then like she was out of college, and then fine, maybe she did have that misstep, but like the fact that they just sort of
Mhm.
have her like party for a while and live in the basement just seems
And like, yeah, and like they were doing a lot of like they were kind of setting up, which I thought they were gonna go like she was being like a little entrepreneur and she had like her side hustles that her parents didn't really get, which I think is another reason why I feel like especially our generation related to her a lot was a lot of people's here is like she is very like still living in her parents' basement and like has a job that her parents don't understand or respect. That's like I feel like a lot of people our age. And then yeah, so then they never like even like I feel like a big character for for her was like finding a job and like I just remember like this one scene where she had to like fight for an interview and she wasn't supposed to get it and like various like startup jobs that she was trying to get and they just never worked out because people were like crazy to her or something. And I don't know, I think it just would have been interesting if they're gonna make her a mom to do it like sooner. And then I thought that also a bit interesting because her all her like plots up until this point were mainly like her dating boy X Y Z, and they were just like boyfriend of the episode, and they were just crazy. And it would have been interesting to kind of, because maybe she used men as like such a crutch, that like she maybe was now a mom and like couldn't put that first and like had to like put her kid first, and like that was like maybe a challenge for her. I don't know. That could have been so interesting. It would have given her something to do that wasn't just dating various non like men.
Yeah, because I do think Hailey's like journey to motherhood or whatever you want to call it was an interesting storyline that they could have done a few seasons earlier. I think like basically yeah, when Andy came into the show, I think like it was obvious he was supposed to be like the person she dated, and like she was supposed to learn I think a lot about herself through that relationship, whether they were together or not. But and like she got the job, like they sort of like became friends by helping each other get the jobs they wanted. Like he got to intern with Bill, and he pushed her to make sure she went to the interview and like did that. And I think that was good development for her. And then they broke up, and again she just like really backslid. Like she started dating after him, I think like a 40-year-old like weatherman or some shit like that. Like she had some like really questionable like boyfriends, and that was how she stayed relevant in the show. And I was like, I get her being sad, but I just don't like see her backsliding this much that like her life is like back to where it was like years ago before she met him. And then I think that could have been even a time where like they introduced that plot line of like maybe she gets pregnant and she has to figure out like how to be a mom and how to like be an adult without always having a boyfriend or like a guy to like swoop in and take care of her.
Yeah, and that was an aspect of her that we were missing from the show. And yeah, I tell everyone this, like I did it. Like it was pretty obvious that she was supposed to end up with Andy, and then what's his name? Is it Adam Levine or Devine? I know what
Adam Devine, Devine. I don't know. Yeah, it's Devine.
Okay, he then just got too famous for the show, which threw a wrench in all their plans. But I still don't, and I think they did the best they could in like retconning that she's supposed to end up with Dylan, but I don't think that was really good. I don't know. I just thought we were over Dylan. Now we were moving on because Dylan just seemed like he was like a punchline character.
My thing is this: yes, it's obvious she was supposed to end up with Andy. Everyone who watched the show was like, "Oh, it's so sad that Adam Devine got too famous." Basically, it seems like.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm upset that she ended up with Dylan. I just think she could have spent those seasons between working on her, like us seeing her as an independent woman more, like, which is why I would have been fine with her, like, maybe, like, Andy leaves and she finds out she's, like, pregnant or something, and, like, she just, like, decides she wants to, like, do it on her own, or, like, he can't come back or something like that. Like, for some reason, he can't come back, and then she has to, like, figure it out on her own, and then I think that would have been an interesting storyline, and then maybe, yeah, she sees Dylan again later when she's, like, grown up, and she does still love him, and he is more of a punchline character, yeah, but, like, I think she could still like want to be with him because he's like a fun guy, and maybe she grows up to be a little bit more like her mom, a little bit more responsible and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think in my rewrite, it would have been that okay, fine, she'll end up with Andy. We'll go from there. I agree with you. I think she should have gotten like pregnant, and I think it would have been funny and it would have been good, like a good set for comedy if Dylan was the father. I think that's fine, and I think they could have. But I don't think she should have gone back with him because I think that shows her regressing a bit. Because I think they would have had to show Dylan grow as well for me to get on board. That they would have to show, and I don't know if they really did. Like I don't know, he did some just like weird shit, but like nothing really character arc worthy, at least in my opinion. And I think she should have been alone with the kid, was single with the kid or kids, and then I think Alex should have gotten married before Hailey, because I think that would have been an interesting dynamic, because Alex has never come first in boys before Hailey. I think that would have been good. And anyways, I just think they kind of lost their way with the two sisters. Like they just kind of both did separate things, and it got really weird, especially when Alex was dating her ex. I thought that was super weird.
Yeah, I think
it just went off the tracks.
okay, I agree with you that I think Hailey and Dylan having kids together would have been like a funny sort of situation. And I agree with you that I think she shouldn't have gotten back with him just because they had kids. And I agree with you that they didn't show Dylan growing up, and I think Dylan did need to grow up a little bit in order for me to like fully back that relationship, because basically like the only difference between Dylan in adulthood and Dylan in when he was 17 is that Dylan is a nurse instead of a musician now.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how Dylan is
poor as shit when they move out, right?
Yeah, they're poor as shit.
Yeah.
Because she works at like I think some like basically like I don't know what it is that she works. She works at one of those like companies that does stuff that doesn't really do stuff. You know what I mean? No.
Like a desk job?
I don't know.
I don't remember where she ends up.
She's like just working at like I think one of the companies that she did it. Like I feel like they do like wellness stuff or something like that. Like very like vague like new world like millennial type thing. Where like I think they do that on purpose.
Like Google startup.
And then he's like a nurse, and like they don't have any money, and they have twins. And you move out,
but it stressed me out when they bought their house. I was like, no, you can't.
Yeah, I think if he had grown up more, like if they had made him a character where I like actually think he's like a somewhat reliable guy, I would like the fact that they ended up together more. And I think it could have been cool if they like decided to not get back together right away when she was pregnant. Yeah. And like do it sort of as like friends, and then like maybe if you actually see a change in him, they could get back. Like, because I kind of like those slow burn relationships too, where like you feel like it's earned in some way, and I didn't feel like their relationship was really earned. But I did believe that they loved each other.
Which I thought was episode too. You remember like Friends when they did that when like I think it was Rachel was pregnant and they didn't know who had knocked her up. Oh my god, that would have been such a good premise. Say if like one of them found the like I love that trope too when they find the pregnancy test and they either don't know who it is or don't know who could possibly be pregnant.
I fucking love that trope. I think it's so funny. Like a pregnancy test was found and someone's just like not stealthily trying to figure out who's pregnant.
It's like a murder mystery. It's like a whodunit, but it's like who got fucked. And I think like I think we're becoming like I think that's maybe why I wanted it to be a bit younger too. Is I think that does fit her character because I think she is very irresponsible at times. As seen when she gets kicked out of college, and I think that would have been a good character arc for that because I think that would have been good. Like, well, she doesn't just like get away with being like a slacker and irresponsible her entire life, and then win the lottery at the end. Like, I think that that's a good like she needs to have a struggle.
Yeah, I think it also would highlight that like I think she is very irresponsible, but she's especially irresponsible with like guys, and like I think they do kind of like allude to the fact that she does like she does like get around a decent amount, which is like totally fine, no shame or anything. But like I feel like that could very easily be part of her like character arc, is that she's like, okay, like I kind of like if she like gets pregnant like accidentally and stuff, it's like, okay, yeah, now I have to like figure it out, and I'm really young, and I've kind of like done a lot of like I've had almost too much fun and been like very reckless a lot of the time, and maybe now I need to learn how to like have fun in moderation and like not be so reckless all the time.
And like lean on her parents a lot too. I feel like I feel like she was the kid that had the worst relationship with them. Like they had the most resentment towards each other.
Well, I think it also would have been like a good way to like bring her back into the show in a big way if like she got pregnant.
She could have had her own little frame. I think she does at the end, or like the last season. Is the whole season that she has the kids for?
Yeah, she has the kids for the whole last season, but she's not really in the last season as much. I think. I can't remember for sure.
But in terms of keeping the show fresh overall, I think that's just like I think it to me it frustrates me most when I feel like there's like a missed potential.
I just feel like Hailey as a character was missed potential, but I do think it was really upsetting just because she was, I think, just such a missed potential character, and like they did so well with a lot of the other characters.
Yeah.
And you wanted to talk about
Oh yeah, let's go on to Alex.
Who, by the way,
Um,
I think
yeah.
you're right. It would have been fun if she like got married first or something. Only because I feel like Alex's journey with guys has been tough, but I think like her parents made it worse. First of all, like I feel like her parents were kind of mean about her a lot, and then I also think that like Alex is really beautiful and like she is like
They tried so hard not to make her beautiful, dude.
yeah, but she's so
They didn't let
beautiful,
her be hot till like season
and I
8.
feel like that could have been more of a thing. Like I feel like Alex's dating life should have been more of her growing up later because she's like because I think it's the part of her that isn't established. Like we all know she's good at school, we all
Yeah.
know she's smart. Let's establish a different aspect of her personality.
Yeah, and I think that's why, like, I think it would work especially well in contrast to Haley, because I feel like they should have just had like basically opposite character arcs, especially at the end, where like I think it would have been fun to see, which I guess she kind of does, but like not really. I think it would have been fun to see Alex kind of go out of a limb and be impulsive and like do something for like love or like some like a guy. Like I think she should have maybe compromised. Like maybe she should have said no to something. I don't know. I just think that would have been fun because it would have been a challenge for her.
Yeah, I think I okay, maybe this is a hot take. I don't know. But I liked Alex hooking up with her professor or whatever at the end. I thought it was mostly just because I thought the scene itself was really funny. Like when she
Okay.
goes in and like talks to him about it and like they totally had a miscommunication and then like they agree to like sort of like send some flirty texts and then like she basically like sexts him and he says you look pretty and like they just have like this like really awkward nerdy encounter that I think is really like fun and a really like I think fun way to show that Alex has really like grown confident in like her body and herself as like a young woman in like the dating
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, I would have kept a little more fresh. Did they do the character arc where I kind of forget? I feel like they might have. I know she dated a kid that ended up being gay, and then she dated someone else.
Well, she brought the like guy to like her like middle school prom or maybe like her high school prom, I don't remember.
Oh yeah.
And then she said when she brought him like I know he's gay and then later they started dating and she's like he's not gay and he
Also,
got
I
mad
think
at
it's
her.
kind of fucked up. I feel like I wouldn't tell my kid. Also,
Yeah, it
I
was
would just let
super
them figure it
weird.
out.
I feel like I would be like it's a like they'll like also
It's
I
middle
feel like
school.
you can't okay. I have terrible gaydar first of all. But I feel like and
Okay.
I mean he was obviously but I feel like you can't just like assume and stuff like I feel like first of all, yeah, you have to let your kid
Is it
figure it
okay
out.
when like Kim does it? That put me off too. I was like, how are you so sure and so sure that you're gonna like say something?
I feel like I just wouldn't say something.
Yeah, I feel like that's like maybe kind of like a you say to like your partner, I'm pretty sure gay. I'm like, yeah, and then that's it. And then it can be like kind of a joke, and maybe they're trying to figure out between the two of them. But like, I don't think you can bring that up to people. I mean, that's like pretty rude. Also, this kid's like 12. What are you in middle school?
Yeah, I think they might be in high
Like
school. I'm not sure, but yeah,
traumatizing.
they're pretty young. They're like, and
Yeah.
that's like why Claire's like, oh, I want to tell her because I want to save her heartbreak, and it's like she's gonna get her heart broken eventually. Like at least make her first breakup be because her boyfriend's gay and not because he doesn't like her. Like that'll.
But did she ever like date a guy that broke up with her because she was like too cold towards them? Because I feel like either that happened or it should have happened. Because I think that would have been a good character beat.
I feel like it was brought up throughout the show that Alex was
She
cold to
keeps
people.
because I remember her like dumping this guy like pretty like horribly.
Which one? I only
The
remember
middle one.
I only remember her firefighter boyfriend. Really?
Oh right. Okay, her dating history is so weird. How they didn't show her like learning how to talk to boys at all, or like
She just all of a sudden could.
yeah, she went from being super awkward to like really overcompensating.
Yeah. I also okay, they made her break up with the firefighter guy because he wasn't like an intellectual like her, and she
Yeah. Oh
wanted.
yeah, she literally said he's dumb. I'm not gonna date him. I'm just gonna sleep with him to his face, or like, he overheard it, or something like that.
I don't know, but I thought that was kind of rude because a, I think opposites attract. I like dumb people all the time. Um, and
Sorry.
and B, it's like okay, he's not like book smart, but like he's probably smart in other ways, and like he can do a lot of things that you can't do. Like, is he like out there being like, oh, I don't want to date her because she like can't like save people from a burning building? Like,
Yeah.
you're mad because he can't do like
He's
the advanced
real.
science that you do? Oh my god.
That I think was a problem for her because like okay, here's what I wrote down for words to describe Alex: resentful, entitled, bitches.
Oh, those are the two words.
Privileged.
Resentful.
Sorry, I wrote a worse word than bitch. But yeah, I think she's oh, especially Alex. She's so mean. So like I think it's like pretty clear that she's like the black sheep from the family. She's like, and Phil and Claire have like a whole episode about it. I'm pretty sure too, where they realize how much smarter Alex is than like either of her parents, and how they're probably holding her back so she can help with like homework and whatnot. And I think that was like a really nice arc, and I think that's like very true. Is that Alex is just a lot smarter than I think everyone else in her family, and doesn't understand them at all, and doesn't have time for like their fun and games and like silliness. Um, so then I think when she goes to college, it's like a good separation from the family unit for her. But I think she, from being like the most intelligent person in the room her entire life, and like the most responsible and having the most on her plate, it seems like she definitely developed a sense of like entitlement, like superiority, like she was better than everyone else. And I think there is this one scene where she doesn't get into a school that she wanted to go into, and she throws like basically a temper tantrum and like throws her to be honest. She's like, I tried so hard for this internet, and like I deserve it. And it just it's so entitled. It reminded me of like kind of like Rory Gilmore vibes of like I'm just like really privileged and like I deserve to get in school because I worked hard. And it's like, well, no, you don't deserve anything in life, really. And then she's like screaming at this like Hailey who was like kicked out of college. She's like, okay, well,
I think they do a good job at like they obviously like she throws a temper tantrum, like they do it intentionally to show that like
yeah,
she's used to just like getting everything that she works for because she is really smart and she is really talented.
yeah,
And that's great. Like I totally think that like she did deserve to go to a top tier university, which she ended up doing, and like study what she wanted, but like she does also need to learn how to deal with failure, which I feel like they have to like show her do time and time again. And like cuz yeah,
yeah,
she does get really like she gets a very like superiority complex, and they show it in one of the episodes where like her, Manny, Mitch, and Cam go to a museum, and literally like one by one they all drop like flies until like Manny comes out and is like, we can't, like I can't keep up with Alex. She makes me feel so dumb. Like Alex is just like constantly making
yeah.
everyone else feel dumb. Like yeah,
Yeah, that's why I think her dating history or like the way they evolved her dating life annoys me is like it didn't feel consistent with like I feel like if you're someone like that who's like that invested in like appearances and like being the smartest person in the room and like work, that's like fine, but you're gonna have failings somewhere else. Like you're not gonna be a fun social person all the time. You're not gonna be like um you know what I mean? Like you can't just win at every part of life, which I feel like at least near the end she seems to.